Welcome to DAPs Magic Live. I am Mr. DAPs, and today I'm joined by Caitlyn, who didn't know I was going live that quickly. And we are going to talk about the Walt Disney Family Museum's Happily Ever After Hours events that they are putting on, it seems like multiple times a week now, aren't they? And you've been, I almost want to say, embedded with the Walt Disney Family Museum for DAPs for years. I feel like one of the first things you wrote for us might have been a thing on the museum. Is that correct?
Possibly.
I vaguely remember you covering something up there before you lived down here. And so I think that's a good place to start is, where did you start with the Walt Disney Family Museum?
So I currently am in the Bay Area. And this is where I grew up, about an hour south of the Family Museum, which is in the Presidio of San Francisco. So going up to San Francisco is a super easy, quick day trip kind of thing. So we would go up to San Francisco a lot. And the museum opened in 2009, and we knew a little bit about it. Again, this was before like Instagram and Twitter and all that kind of Disney community on social media. The dark ages. So we went up to the Disney Museum about a month after it opened. Not many people knew what it was because the Presidio was an old, what's the word I'm looking for?
Military base.
Military base, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I love it there. It's so cool.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful area. And so I think a lot of people are like, why is this here in San Francisco? Well, Diane, Walt's daughter, lived in Napa, so she wanted something that was close so she could make day trips down and be involved firsthand on the project. And
she really was.
She was. She was there pretty often, hard hats, the whole thing. She was very involved with the building, and so that's why it's in San Francisco, is because it was close for her to be able to commute and go versus out like in Marceline, where it's a little bit more difficult to have her hand actually in it.
That would have been a challenge.
Yeah. So back when it's funny because I remember back when it first opened, the museum itself hasn't changed a whole lot as far as content on the inside. Like little things have changed here and there. But, I was like, oh, I'm a Disney annual pass holder. Do you get discounts? And they're like, well, we're not actually affiliated with the Disney company, so no. And then you couldn't take pictures like for the first couple of years because there were so many legal issues with like the Disney company and like the stuff that they had. And so they're like, you can't take pictures. And I'm like, there are so many cool things here I want to take pictures of. I want people to see this.
And then I don't know about you, but I felt guilty even having my camera. I was just like, I'm not going to do anything. I promise.
Yeah. I don't even think I took my camera the first time. I don't think I did,
we
but
knew that you couldn't until we got there. And so I took lots of pictures outside and around, and I think you could in the lobby or something.
Yes,
and
in the lobby. but once you get actually like in with your ticket, it's like, okay, no photos.
Done.
I'm like,
yeah.
Oh no, wait. So we went the first time we went was around Thanksgiving because it had opened in October. And I want to say it probably took us maybe 3 or 4 hours to go through the whole thing because there was just so much to look at. I mean,
did you
for those that haven't, we did, but this is kind of sad. It was like a couple weeks after my gramps had died, so it was also
it was like a double whammy.
It was kind of rough. The last room was
that
fairly rough. But there's just so much cool stuff there. I mean, even just seeing the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs Oscar like in the lobby was just kind of like, oh my gosh, this is really cool seeing this in person. Or the first known sketches of Mickey. And I Love Oswald, and there was Oswald stuff in there. And so there's so many cool things to look at. And funny enough, later, this is the one thing we really wanted to take a picture of because we wanted someone to be like, oh my gosh, look at this, is really funny. And we could years later. There's this one little section before you get to the hallway where the Golden Gate Bridge is, and it's all of Walt's miniatures because Walt loved miniatures. There's in one of the cabinets, there's this note from someone from Fonda Antiques, and so we're weird. Like, oh my gosh! And the name on the stationery says William M. Fonda, and my brother's name is William Michael Fonda. So we were like, whole
That
time.
is crazy.
We really wanted to take a picture of it because we're like, we wonder if this is someone who's related to us. Like,
Right? Small world.
it was just kind of weird. So we always laugh about that every time we see it now. But there's just so many cool things, and it's a beautiful location. So
And you
I would
became
go
an
out there.
annual pass holder there too, right?
Yeah, so I became a member because it was
Or member?
really
Yeah.
cheap. Yeah, member. It was really cheap. And it still actually is a really good price.
How much is it now?
I want to say it's still $80.
That's what I vaguely remember also, but
Because it was about the same price. I had a membership, I think, for 3 years, but it included because tickets were $20. So if you're paying $80, but your ticket is covered, and every time you go, you get in a guest for free. So really, you had to go twice with a friend, and you paid it off for a year,
totally.
and then you got a discount at the museum store, which was always dangerous. And then some of the
They have
events
some
were
really
free.
unique stuff there. Like their store is really good.
It's really dangerous every time I go there. Actually, my parents have one too. It's this metal sign. It's probably about this big, and it's an e-ticket, but as a metal sign.
Oh, that's cool. I think I remember seeing that there. I always get stuck with the books. I'm like, I don't need these, but I really want all of them.
It's dangerous whenever I go in there, even if we go up to San Francisco and I'm like, I don't need to go in the museum, but since we're driving by, can we go to the gift shop?
Right.
I could spend a lot of money there or getting things for like Annie art stuff, and it's a lot of fun to go in there. But then they have rotating exhibits, which are really cool. They added, I think, I want to say maybe 6 or 7 years ago, they had another building kind of back behind that they used for like special events and such. And then they kind of turned it into, after Diane Disney Miller passed away, they turned it into the Diane Disney Miller Hall. And so now it's this huge building, and they use it for larger exhibits. One of the first ones I went to was, oh my gosh, I have to remember the name. I think it was like Magic Color Flare, The Art of Mary Blair, or something like that. It was really cute and really fun. And so it was all Mary Blair stuff, and it was amazing. Last year, they actually hosted me, and I got to go and do the Mickey Mouse exhibit, which was really cool. Just a lot of cool Mickey Mouse art from fans and his involvement in the parks and all sorts of cool stuff. So they do a lot. And then they do smaller exhibits. They have a full movie theater, and it's Sorcerer's Apprentice themed, which is really fun.
Cool. And it's comfortable. Like,
it is very comfortable.
Like, you're not always comfortable in theaters when you go to a museum. Like, I don't know about you, but you get into the seats and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna have to sit here for 20 minutes.
Like 2 hours.
and like, yeah, and you can watch a full movie in there and you're comfortable. It very much reminds me of the one at the studios, Walt Disney Studios as well. It kind of has that same feel, different decor, but
yeah, but it's cool because they do like a movie of the month in there, which is really fun. And then they do their talks there. I actually went, I've done a couple talks there, or been to a couple of them. One of them was our friend Don Ballard, who's the Disneyland Hotel historian. So he was like, "You guys have to come. We'll make sure you can get tickets." And so we got to go, and that was really fun.
He does a really good presentation too.
He does.
Is he doing an after hours?
I don't think so.
He needs to. They
Not
need to
that
do
I
it.
know of.
That would be a good, like, this format is perfectly suited for him because he's showing pictures and like it really would line up with what he does. They should do that.
Yeah, he just has a lot of cool information about the Disneyland Hotel. I mean, the fact that he's the one who found the original opening day color footage, like no one knew it existed, and he found it.
Is that's the one I went to? Was the first time he showed it, right? Was it at D23 or something? And you're like, you got to go to this thing, and I'm like, okay, it sounds fun. I like history, and then it, like, I kind of went in with mediocre expectations and came out. I'm like, oh, that was actually really cool, and then we got to hang out at Christmas one time too, right? When all of us were picking on you, remember?
Just the one time?
Well, the one time that was me, your dad, and Don.
Yeah. But yeah, so Don's done a talk there. I actually got to see Marty Sklar do a talk, and Marty Sklar was the funniest person to listen to. And he just had a lot of cool insight because he had been part of all of the park openings up to that point. It was pre-Shanghai, so Shanghai hadn't opened. But he still was at that point the only person who had been to every single Disney park opening, and so that was cool. But a story from that I haven't actually told anywhere. I've put it on social media, but I've never actually like told it. Is I met Walt Disney's daughter that day. So I met Diane Disney Miller at Marty Sklar's talk, and I'm one of those people in school. I would not sit in the front row. I was like, I'm going to be in the back. I'm going to just try to not be here, take my notes and leave. For Disney talks, I'm one of those people in the front row, like, okay. So Marty's talking, and he's like telling a story about Walt, and he goes, Diane, and he asked, and I'm just sitting there going, oh my gosh, Diane Disney Miller's here. And I turn around and she's in the back and I'm like, oh my gosh, freaking out. So once the thing was over, everyone was getting in line to have Marty sign their books. And I had already purchased my book prior to the actual event. And so I'm kind of just a little more relaxed. Like, I don't need to buy the book. We can wait at the end. It's fine. And Diane was walking around, and everything in me is going, I just want to meet her. That's Walt Disney's daughter. Like, she's the reason Disneyland exists. And so my mom took my hand. She's like, come on, let's go. And she goes up to her and she goes, Mrs. Miller. And I don't remember all of the conversation. I really don't. It's
because you blacked out and fainted. Yeah, we know.
I was just, I didn't faint. What I do remember is it was in kind of the like downstairs lobby area where the Mary Blair floor is. But right next to the lobby of the movie theater. So we're kind of saying hi, and my mom had said something along the lines of, my daughter just graduated college and her degrees in hospitality. And I remember Diane took my hands and she's like, honey, this is a company to work for. That's like the only thing I remember. So she took my hands and it's like, you have to work for Disney one day. And I just kind of, oh my gosh, Walt Disney's daughter's telling me this right now.
Instead, you got stuck working for me.
Oh, but I love working with you guys. But then, my mom said, do you mind if we take a picture? And she's like, come here, let's go in here. So she took me in the little lobby of the movie theater, which there's no photos allowed in there, like at all. But when it's Diane, it's fine.
Who's going to stop her? Yeah.
Exactly. And so she took my mom and I in there and we chatted probably for a good 5 minutes. My mom has a couple pictures that she took. One of them, we were both talking, so our hands are like blurry because iPhone photos were terrible back then. But you could tell we were both into the conversation, and we took a picture, and it was literally just Diane and my mom and I just chatting. And the crazy part is she passed away 2 months later. And I again don't remember most of the conversation, but
which doesn't even really matter because it's how you felt, and that's almost better.
It was just kind of surreal, and looking back, I go like, wow, that was one of my favorite memories from the museum. But it's still just, it's
and I think it encapsulates what the museum is, though, because it's not just a iconic name or an iconic brand. It's really the people behind that. Whether it really is Walt's, it was what her focus and her dream was is have the Disney Family Museum. But when you talk to the docents there and the people that work there, or I was up there, I guess it was about a year ago now. And and I just I took the group I was with into the bookstore, and the guy that was working there was a manager of some sort, and we ended up talking for like 20 minutes about Disney and Disneyland and where we're from, and that just doesn't happen in a lot of places. The closest I can say is it's almost where it's almost like a presidential museum, because those often have those kinds of people as well, but with the Disney magic added in. And so now they've had to take all of this, which is an incredible experience, and cram it onto a computer screen for what are they called? The after hours events. And
Happily Ever After Hours.
It's a cute name. And I love Happily Ever After in Florida. But excellent fireworks show, but that's another show. So you've gotten to experience a few of these. Why don't you first tell us, what are these events and how long do they go?
So the Happily Ever After Hours are essentially what the talks in the theater would have been, just on a screen. And It still only is offered to, well, it's offered to everyone, but only a limited number of people can join. So once registration hits their cap, it still has that feel of, okay, even though I don't exactly know how many people are in this talk, it's not, hey, there are thousands and thousands of people watching, and it's still pretty intimate. And whoever the speaker is talking to maybe only 100 of us or 200 of us.
And
so
it's
they
using
started
Zoom?
doing happily. It's using Zoom. So it's cool because then there's the chat feature. And so you'll see people kind of like pop up every so often, and they do take questions beforehand, some during, but they try to have the questions kind of ahead of time from people.
Yeah,
have
it's
them
hard to
submit
moderate
them.
those. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they ask a few fan questions. But it's really cool just to listen to these people's stories. The first one I did was a few weeks ago, and it was with Don Hahn. And I actually met Don. I had to find the picture because it was just kind of funny. I was like, oh, I have to find this picture of Don and I from, I think actually it was Destination D in 2012. And I actually think
Oh,
that was the
okay.
first article I ever wrote for DAPs. It was like a month after I signed on to DAPs. And I think that was the first one I ever did.
Nice.
Anyways, but so the first talk was with Don Hahn. And I mean, Beauty and the Beast and Lion King are two of my favorite Disney movies. So I was like, okay, well, this is fun. And then Annie, my roommate, was able to watch with me because long story, her dad and Don were in high school marching band together.
Of course they were.
So there was one time Annie reached out to him, and he popped by the ink and paint desk at Disney and was talking to
Remember
her.
that.
And everyone's like, how do you know Don Hahn? Like, what? So it's kind of funny. So we wanted to watch that one. And he honestly, there were so many things I learned, not only about him, but about just Disney and how animation has changed over the years. And it just was really interesting to kind of have all of this in an hour.
He's an incredible storyteller too. Like not just from a big picture, like movie standpoint, like he just knows how to innately create amazing stories. And I remember years ago, he put out a book, and I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but it was all about how to be creative. And it was interesting talking about making a space for creativity and setting yourself up in the proper like environment, both inside and out for creativity. It's a great book. I should look it up and I actually should put it in my list of books you should read as a Disney fan. But he's just got this creativity to him, but also combined with the real world practicality of like, here's how the business works. And I think that's really why he's become such a giant in the movie world. I almost said animation, but he's moved beyond that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Did he talk about Disney nature at all?
A little bit. He talked about, well, funny enough, I didn't realize that he had started in the Morgue at the Disney Studios. And that's at first, most people be like, the Morgue, what?
I got to go there on my first media tour of the studios. It was very cool.
Yeah. I got to go there my first time at the studios. And then we got to go there last year because a friend of a friend works in ink and paint at the studios now and took us on a tour. So we got to go through the Morgue. And so for those of you that don't know what the Morgue is,
we're not just being morbid right now.
No. So with inking and painting back in the early animation days, they would ink the cell and then it would need to be transferred over to paint, but it can't go outside because sun could warp the cell. So when they built the new studios, they made these underground tunnels to get the cells safely from place to place. And so that's the Morgue. And so he was one of those runners who would go from ink to paint and take things back and forth. And so I didn't know that's how he got his start at Disney.
I love all the different movies and TV shows that were filmed down there too, so they could have a spooky thing or, whatever. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So I didn't know he started there. So that was really interesting for both Annie and I, since Annie is an ink and paint artist. So that was just kind of cool to kind of hear where he started. And some of the movies, I didn't realize that he worked or he was a producer on Hunchback of Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. I think we all just hear about like Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, like Disney Nature. There are all these things that we just kind of know that he worked on. He did actually talk a little bit about Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
To say he worked on
that too.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's funny because he brought up the fact that back when like Pete's Dragon, Mary Poppins, all of those films were integrating animation with live action, the shot would be set up that it's like the camera is stuck here and basically the animators would have to work within that frame. But for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, these were moving parts. Like this was, the car is moving and they had to animate a moving car in a moving picture. And so just doing that was just a huge amount of work and just a huge transition into animating into a live action film. But then he brought up the fact, and I hadn't really processed this, and he's like, pretty much all movies nowadays are a combination of live action and animation. And I was like, what? And he's all, look at Marvel movies. There's so much live action, but there's so much CGI that has to be put into it.
There's more CGI than there is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So just kind of interesting. He was talking about that progression of animation and live action, and also just how they did that for, Beauty and the Beast and Lion King and all that. And he did, back to Disney Nature, to your question, he did talk about that a little bit, because they were kind of inspired on the True Life Adventures that Walt had done.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was approached to kind of help bring some of those back. And, there's a fine line with filming these animals, not invading their actual space, not kind of disrupting wildlife and what naturally takes place in the wild, but then also trying to create a
good story. Yeah.
Based off of animals.
Which is funny because that's the exact same problem they had decades ago too. Yeah.
Right. Well, and then it's funny just looking at how many Disney movies are based off of animals, but here they're taking live action animals, and how in the world do we make a story surrounding this? So he did talk about those a bit, which was really cool. And Dawn is just really interesting to listen to. I had asked Annie, I said, do we want to submit a question? She was like, no, I just want to keep listening.
Nice.
And, someone asked, it was really cool, just, with everything that's going on, so many people don't know what next steps in life are. And so there was a girl who submitted a question, and she said she was a junior in high school, and she's all, I need to start looking at colleges, and I want to get into animation, but where do I start? And I think, honestly, he spent the most time on that answer. And I just kind of felt like, you're a cool guy, Don.
Paying it forward.
Well, and he just was like, here are just a bunch of schools, but don't just look into the schools and look into the area. Like, it could be a great big city, but, it could be a small town that's awesome. Get inspiration from what's around you. And I'm just like, you're such a cool guy to see. He was really awesome to listen to. That's very cool. And he just kind of could keep talking. And he was in his office, his studio, yeah. And so he just had all this kind of cool stuff. And someone's like, can you tell us what's around you? And there's like,
that's cool.
There's like a painting of LeFou behind him. And then just some other funny, random things. But it was cool to listen to.
Well, the painting makes sense since they just did the thing in Epcot.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think it was that.
I think it was too.
The new.
So you also saw Paige O'Hara, right?
Oh my gosh, she's a gem. I love her. Funny enough, I don't know a lot about Paige O'Hara because let's face it, I love Jodie Benson. I love Little Mermaid. So I know.
It's fine.
I did the Paige O'Hara one though because I love Beauty and the Beast. It again is in my top 5 favorite Disney movies. And so I signed up because the great part about these happily ever after hours is they're free. I would still pay like $10 or $15 to participate in these, but they're free, and so it's just easy to register, and then you get to participate and just kind of have it up on your screen and have a snack, and it's great. So I did the Paige O'Hara one 2 weeks ago, and she's adorable. And I
do love how all of them are so sweet. Like when we went to the, I think it was the voice panel at D23 on the last day, when all of the princesses were up there just talking about it and loving on each other and loving the fans and loving, like, it's just a big love fest, and they're so ridiculously kind. And
yes. It was funny because, again, all of these are supposed to be an hour. Dawn's was about an hour. Paige's was a little over because she just had so many adorable stories to tell. And honestly, there was so much about Paige that I didn't know. I knew she was an artist. I
Mhm.
knew she
She's really
honestly
gifted too.
she's an incredible
Yeah.
artist who does a lot for Disney. And it was cute because she had like three paintings up, like three Beauty and the Beast paintings up behind her. And then she's like, oh, I just did this Rapunzel one that's like 3 feet tall. And then she was talking about how she got into Disney fine art, and she said, I didn't feel like I was good enough for doing this, and now I do art full time. Um, you know, I knew very little about her. Didn't really know she came from Broadway, but
Mhm.
she was living in New York and actually started painting professionally when she was 17 and trying to sell her art while trying to figure out her Broadway career.
Hmm.
So it was like, oh, okay. But she got cast in Beauty and the Beast because back in those days in the Renaissance with Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and all that, they were looking for Broadway people specifically because they wanted those strong
Well, that's where Jodie
voices.
Benson came from too.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually wish that they still did that in many respects, in just across the board for any musical, whether it's animated or otherwise, because there is a strength, but there's also a vocal performance that comes through in the way that they inflect. And that really brings to life emotion to a higher extent. And you can really like it. That's one of the reasons The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast are so iconic and will always be, is because of the vocal performance that come through those and take it to that next level. And then even you fast forward to something like Frozen, what did they do? They went back to Broadway and it worked.
You can tell the difference between Broadway people and not Broadway people.
Oh, 100%.
It's there.
And sometimes it works totally well. And I think Disney's done a fairly good job with it. But there is something that just takes it to that next level, I feel like, when they've pulled somebody from Broadway.
Yeah, and Howard Ashman actually saw her on Broadway. So he knew who she was before she got the role. And then
That's
when
really
she got
cool.
the role, it was like this click. And she, funny enough, was able to record all of her lines in the first day.
Wow.
But then
I did not know that one.
She's like, I did the whole thing in one day. Like, but from what I remember, they either didn't have everyone cast yet.
So she had to go back and do some other stuff.
Yeah. So then she said in total, it took about 2 years to record because there were changes. She said, actually, a lot of people don't know this, but Be Our Guest wasn't supposed to be sung to Belle. It was originally supposed to be sung to Maurice. And then they were kind of looking at it.
I think I heard that.
It didn't really work. Like,
yeah.
So then they kind of would have to go back and redo things. And someone asked her, they're like, what's your favorite line from the movie? And she kind of like got all in the zone. And she's like, Gaston, you're positively primeval. And it's just like, oh my God.
That's cute.
She did it and it was adorable. So, she talked a lot about working on Beauty and the Beast and how in the end, really the story of Beauty and the Beast really came from Howard Ashman's music. Like the storyline was there, done by the directorial team and all of them, but really it came from Howard, and just he was so involved. And
there's a documentary coming about him in a month or two.
Yes, which Don Hahn did. So he talked about that on his talk.
Okay, I was hoping
he said that's supposed to be out this summer.
I was thinking July.
I don't think he gave. Yeah, I don't know if he gave an exact date. But it was, I want to say it's July. Yeah.
I cannot wait. I think it's going to be a tearjerker, but it's going to be great.
And back to Don, he said he just was able to go back to so many people who had worked with him. And so that'll be a really interesting documentary. But
it really will be. I'm glad they did it.
And I mean, I don't know as much about Howard, but I would like to. He passed away. I mean, I was only probably a year or two when he passed away.
Wow.
So I don't know as much about him except from just the stories that other people have told.
Wow.
But I mean, Paige just had a lot of great things to say about him. She said, funny enough, the only time that Howard and Alan Menken fought during Beauty and the Beast. And I thought this was funny because I'd kind of heard a little bit of this story before, but I didn't realize it was like the only fight they'd ever had was over how long the opening song was supposed to be.
Oh, I think I've
we
heard
all
this.
know Belle is really long.
Yeah.
And Howard was like, we can't do a 7-minute song. And Alan's like, well, but this opens everything up. We have to. And so basically, was the only fight they got into the entire time working on Beauty and the Beast. And then she told the story about, she was a huge Angela Lansbury fan before working with her. So she's like, I used to sneak in because back then you could get into a Broadway show after intermission for free or just sneak in. They don't do that anymore. But she said she would go and sneak in and see Angela and Gypsy.
Oh, wow.
And then she got to work with her, and she's like, that was just to be able to work with Angela Lansbury.
She
was amazing.
is magic. Like when I did that
oh my gosh.
Mary Poppins Returns event and I got to like, she's right there. Like that was pretty impressive. And
well, go ahead.
good.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Well, and then she told a story about, and I think you probably know the story. You know most stories. Just the fact that she's like, yeah, Angela, the day we were supposed to record, or she was supposed to record Beauty and the Beast, she had been traveling all night. She was not feeling well. She came to the studio. She said, no, I'm going to do it. Did it in one take. That was it. Like, no sleep, not feeling well. And that's the only,
And
the
that is a
in the movie
professional.
is it.
Yep.
Just all these crazy things, but she just had so many wonderful stories. I did mention in my article that because she's in Enchanted, and I love all the princess cameos that they put in Enchanted. Hers, I feel like, is a little bit more difficult to find because she's on the TV screen.
Which is funny because I saw, like, the first time I saw the movie, I was just like, hey, you know, like, I don't know. I tend to notice those things too, though.
Well, yeah, but I feel like most people would not have the slightest idea. But she's like, yeah, the guy that I was supposed to do my scene with, he got sick. So they're trying to find someone. And Johnny Depp was in the area, or he was filming another movie and he offered to come do it, but then the timing didn't work out. But who, like, Johnny Depp could have been in Enchanted. And it was like, what? That's so random, but hilarious.
It really is.
Yeah, she was so cute to listen to, and you know, didn't know that she was friends with Kobe Bryant, and they had a really great working relationship too. And but just listening to her talk, she just had so many fun things to say, and she's like, I could talk for as long as you guys want.
So then you also did another one.
Yeah, so last week, which I haven't gotten to the article yet, but it's coming.
You can tease it, so we won't say everything that happened to this one, but yes. So who was it?
It was Ashley Eckstein. I believe it's Eckstein. I always get confused. And Brett Iwan. Oh my gosh. There are two people that watching them, you just want to be friends with them. They're just so bubbly and fun, and just they have these wonderful personalities, and they're both great storytellers too. Ashley's adorable. Oh my gosh. It was funny. I will say this. Her phone started ringing. She's like, yeah, we have a landline. We're one of very few people that has a landline still. Because everyone's like, what? And she's like, oh, sorry. And then it goes over to Brett. And he goes in Mickey Mouse voice. Is like, don't answer it. Someone might be out to get you.
That sounds about right.
I don't know.
He is very witty in the moment. The first interview I ever did with him, one of our dogs barked, and he popped into Mickey's voice and said, "Quiet, Pluto," and like I was totally cool through the whole interview until that moment where he's like, "Quiet, Pluto," as Mickey, and I was like, and you have to keep going and play it. But I've got the recording somewhere. I should put it back up, but. It was very funny. I just was like, okay. And that is why we have a studio.
Oh my gosh. But no, it just was really fun to listen to them. You know.
So what was the main point of their talk in general?
Well, it was kind of fun because it started out with how they became friends, because now they're doing a lot together.
They're touring
Disney,
together.
For D23. Yeah, they talked a little bit about the tour they were supposed to go on.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, Ashley talked a lot about creativity and her business, and just kind of a little bit about that. And then one of the biggest questions that was asked of both of them is because they had such different answers for this, is talking about their voiceover roles, because Ashley came into Ahsoka with Ahsoka's not part of the Star Wars universe. No one knows who she is. So she was able to
Talk about risk too.
Make it her own. Well,
yeah.
her audition story is hilarious. Yeah. Very funny. So that was a good story. But so here we have Ashley on one end who gets to make this character her own. While on the complete other end of the spectrum, we've got Brett, who is voicing a very well-established character, you know, originally voiced by Walt Disney. So
with a lot of opinions.
To essentially, has this legacy to live up to. And voice this character that everyone knows and loves. And so just how complete opposite ends of the spectrum their voiceover kind of experiences were.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were other fun questions, you know, like, Ashley, do you collect Ahsoka stuff? And it was really sweet because she said she collects Ahsoka stuff. But then when fans give her stuff, she keeps it all. She said, I literally have kept every single piece of fan mail, gifts, everything that anyone has ever given to me. And Brett's like, there are too many Mickey things out there for me to collect. And he said something about, he voiced a crock pot. So then I'm sitting there going, where is this crock pot? I need this.
He's probably in Japan or something.
I don't think it's out yet, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I looked everywhere for it, but I guess it'll say like, your food's ready. Like, when
that's
it's done.
Funny. So I could see you getting that. Too bad your birthday's already passed. Too
bad my
Christmas is coming.
Christmas is coming.
It probably is coming out for Christmas.
Probably, but it just was really funny because it hit the hour mark, and you know the moderators are okay. Are we doing good on time? We're a little bit over, and Brett, like you said, just super witty, like, oh, I got dinner going, and you know I gotta go, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, we'll finish up. And he's like, I'm totally just kidding. She's all, oh, I thought you had a crock pot, like telling you your dinner's done. And so it was kind of everyone in the chat, like, I need this crock pot.
Right.
So it was fun to listen to the two of them, especially just their friendship. They're so close, and just their banter. And I'm like, you guys need a YouTube show because this would be great.
They are very comfortable together. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. And it's just nice seeing how close they've become, like how close they've gotten. And they've only known each other a couple of years, and just, what encouraging people in the Disney community they are. And it just was really fun to listen to them. That talk ended up being, I want to say, over an hour and a half. It was getting close to 2 hours.
Wow. And they're ridiculously positive too, which is, I like that. And for what their positions are and what they've gone through for their positions, it'd be very easy to not be. And they still have that message of you can, and step out and pursue the dream. And, you know, they're always encouraging people to go out and do it and not just sit there and wish you had. And I just love that about both of them. I think they're fantastic. So you've got another one that you hopefully will get into next week, I think. And there's a bunch of these coming up in the coming weeks. If not, we'll see how long they end up going. Right.
Yes.
So
pulling up my email.
Okay, cool. So do you know, we don't have our article up yet on what's coming up on, we have one, but we need an updated one on upcoming events because they've got a lot of these, right?
Yeah, they just sent out a new email.
Like a day or two ago, I think. You froze a little bit, so I'm going to talk a little bit. But they did just send out a new email a day or three, and Caitlyn's still frozen. But it did come out, and let me tell her she froze. But they've got a lot of people that are going to be, it's going to be a fantastic, let's see if I can find it on my email. They're worth signing up for. They're free. And they are slow on my email. Let me turn off the Wi-Fi. But they've got Leslie Iwerks coming up. They've got, here we go. They've got the paper airplane guy, John Collins, who's going to talk about paper airplanes, which will be very cool. And let me click back in. And then they have, open the email back up. They're going to have an animation festival coming up, which will be fantastic. They've got other things as well. But if you go to their website, they have all of these things, and it's just really definitely worth checking out. And Caitlyn's trying to get back in, but highly recommend signing up for any or all of these. You don't get into every one of them because they do sell out on occasion. And yeah. Apparently their power went out, and I'll have her use her phone so we can wrap this up properly. But they've got these events going on, and then as the year goes further down, they'll have in-person events as well that look like they're going to be very cool, and definitely worth checking out as well. And then if you get the chance, go and stop by there. It's a great place to spend the day. If you're really into museums, you could spend hours going through every little thing, reading every plaque, and talking to the people that work there. And that's assuming you're not going to a special event there. If you're going to a special event there, you could literally spend the whole day. And if you go through museums quicker, then partner it up with a picnic on the park out there, or go for a walk around the edge of the water. There's a lot of things that are really close by that are in walking distance, so you can easily spend a day on the Presidio and then do the family museum and everything else that's there as well. And you won't go wrong with it. It's a lot of fun to do that. And I've been there a few times. Caitlyn's been there lots of times, so she's really the expert on that. And she will have more articles about what is going on at the Walt Disney Family Museum. And maybe at some point we can get somebody from there up there. There she's back. And maybe at some point we can get one of the Family Museum representatives on one of these streams, and we can chat with them about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why. But did you get the list? You're on your phone, or are you on your iPad?
I'm on my phone. Sorry,
okay.
We're having Santa Ana status winds up here, and it knocked out half of our power.
That's cool.
The internet just completely was gone.
That's great. All good. Well, I think we covered what's going to be going on. You are going to have probably an article on the Ashley Brett thing coming up at some point. And then I wouldn't be surprised if you have one on the Leslie Iwerks event that you're going to go to next week or whenever that is.
Yep.
And then I just said, I gave them my elevator pitch of why you should do this, or what you should do at Walt Disney Family Museum. Spend the day there, enjoy the area around. Why should somebody either go to one of these or go to the Walt Disney Family Museum?
Well, we'll start with the Happily Ever After Hours. So first off, they have them very often. So the email I got yesterday, they announced a few more coming up. So I just registered for the Leslie Iwerks one today. Bobby, I can't pronounce his last name. He's the one in DuckTales. Moynihan has one coming up. It's really tempting. I usually let you cover this beat, but I'm I kind of really just want to go watch and geek out. We'll see. I might have to hop in on that one. And then Jonas Rivera from Pixar has one coming up. I think they've been sending out an email probably once every week or every other week. Because every
time we get an article up, it's oh, we need to do another one.
Oh, there's another one.
Yeah.
But it's fun. First off, they're free. So how can you go wrong with a free event? Honestly, they could be charging $5 or $10 for these, and I would still do it because, it's a great value.
It's access you just don't get anywhere else.
Well, yeah. And it's just also the fact that, granted, I don't live in the Bay Area anymore, minus the fact I'm here right now, but so it's just kind of fun for me to still feel like I can be part of something with the Disney Museum, even though I'm not in the area. So that's where it's really cool with the family music, with the after hours events is, they're free, which is great. But just feeling connected to the museum without actually being there. And also just these people that they have on for the Happily Ever After Hours, they're people who really believe in what the museum is doing. The museum doesn't just do talks with filmmakers and people in the Disney community, and they don't just have a museum. They do a lot of programs, and they do a lot within the community as well.
And education, and they're all over the place. It's really impressive.
Because they do a lot of things for kids. They do workshops. So they do like animator workshops, and then they'll do all sorts of like 3D modeling. They'll do all sorts of classes and workshops and just interactive things. So it's not just, hey, I'm going and I'm going to look at a bunch of Walt Disney artifacts, and which is still really cool. Don't get me wrong. But they do just so much more. And it's a cool location. I love visiting there. I have visited there, I don't know how many times. I go out there as often as I can.
I just said that. I was like, I've been there a few times. Caitlin's been there countless.
I don't know how many times they've been there.
What do you love most about it?
I think I just love the history aspect of it, because there is a lot out there on Walt Disney. There really is. But it's just something completely different when you get to actually see tangible things of Walt, or see actual, like the first known Mickey Mouse sketch. That's crazy that they have that little, it's a one piece of paper, but it's got like 5 different Mickeys on it. And the fact that they have that, they've got some, like they have Walt's skis, like his skis just in this kind of display case. And they have, oh my gosh, I just blanked on the name. I'm picturing it. The
multi-plane camera.
Thank you.
I was like, it has to be the multi-plane camera.
Oh my gosh, I just blanked on what it is. They have one of the last few multi-plane cameras there, which is,
and it's in a really cool spot, so you can see it from, it's cool.
From upstairs to down. There's just so many cool things there that it feels like you're really walking in Walt's footsteps. And I know that's a tour at Disneyland, but at the Disney Museum, it's literal, because it starts, I love that the whole first room is, I don't even know if that's a quarter, if that's half of the awards he's ever won, but there are all these awards, and they're amazing from all over the world. A case of just his Oscars. But then you actually get into the first actual room is like baby pictures and him growing up, and it goes through a lot of things that people don't cover necessarily, with like the Laughograms and the Alice comedies. And there's just a lot of stuff that they don't necessarily talk about at Disneyland, or in a lot of other
and there's not space for that in other places. Like
exactly.
it's just one of those hard things that there really hasn't been any other space for this, and this provides that place. And I guess the closest I could almost say is maybe the museum in Marceline, but there's just nobody's comprehensively brought everything together in one place and made it a place where not only is it a museum about Disney, but I think more importantly than being a museum, it's a way to connect with him. Which is really interesting, because as far as I know, there wasn't any like, oh, Walt Disney lived in this building. There's no like physical connection other than through Diane and Ron that this building is connected to Walt Disney. And like he might have visited there or something, for all we know. But it really does, I think, more than many other places, connect you to Disney than just about anywhere other than maybe the studios.
Yeah, and I think also because with the Disney Museum, because Diane was so heavily involved, this was a labor of love from Diane. I feel like this, in a sense, was like a love letter to her dad.
Yep.
Because, she just put so much time and energy into making it perfect, into telling his story, because the way the museum works is it goes through everything chronologically, but it also talks about some of the negative things that happen. So you hop into an elevator that takes you up to the next floor, and it looks like a train inside. So it's, totally up your alley. But one of the quotes when you go up the elevator is Walt talking about, you got to have a good failure.
That's one of my favorite Walt quotes, by the way.
That, so it's got that in there. And then it even has a little bit about the strike that happened. And that was not a good thing for Disney, but it doesn't negate that it happened.
Well, and it really broke his heart, and it was a big blow to Walt.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. I mean, I just love going through there. It's funny because I love taking people or being with people their first time at Disneyland, but I really love taking people to the Disney Museum for their first time, because then when they see things and they're like, oh my gosh, that's the first, what, that's this, or that's the first drawing of Mickey, or oh my gosh, that was Walt's, or just seeing all of these artifacts, because they really have so many pieces. I feel like I probably see something new every time I go, because there's just so much to look at. And honestly, my favorite though is, and they've posted pictures, so I feel like this isn't a spoiler for anyone. My favorite is walking into like the Disneyland Room.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
It's just every time. I mean, let me tell you, the glass hallway leading up to it, where you see the Golden Gate Bridge, is pretty amazing.
It's epic. It's very cool.
Unless if it's foggy and you can't see the bridge, then it's a bummer.
It's like I haven't had that experience.
Which is very normal. But you walk into the Disneyland Room and there's like the model of Disneyland.
It really is gorgeous.
I have taken way too many pictures of it, but oh well. And I mean, I could literally just stand there and look at it for a half hour to 45 minutes. And I've done that. I mean, the Disneyland Room is by far my favorite. And then it kind of gets into a little bit of Epcot, which is also cool. Like, I love the floor. Like, one of the floors is like the original concept for Epcot, which is cool. And it just, I love that it's literally a walk through his life, but it's stuff that you either wouldn't see at Disneyland or any other museum, because these were family keepsakes. Like, they have one little frame. They have this one box that's some of Walt's stuff. So it's like his watch, a hat, a suitcase, things like that. But there's a little frame, and it's photo booth pictures of he and Lillian. And it's just like things like that you just kind of go, where else are you going to see this? Yep. It's really incredible. And all the people who work there, I mean, a lot of them are volunteers, and they just love being there. William actually has a friend that used to be a volunteer there and loved working there, because it's such a cool location, and there's just so much rich history there that I think people don't really realize. And so that's just why it's really special. It's also in a beautiful location. It's in San Francisco. We actually were up there one time during, oh my gosh, we were just talking about the boat races, sailboat, or the World Cup. No, not the World Cup. That was happening, and so we could like see the boats like racing as we were there. And then also in the Presidio, for Star Wars fans, Lucasfilm is also in the Presidio. You can go and see the Yoda statue.
Checking out, walking by. Yeah, it is.
All the times we've been there, it's closed. So we're like looking in the glass, like at all the Star Wars stuff in the lobby. Yep. But I mean, it's definitely worth a trip if you're in San Francisco, if you're even remotely near San Francisco. It's not a lot of money, $20 a person. Even if you get a membership and you have the membership for a year and you go once or twice, you've paid for it. But they just continue to do really incredible things,
better and better. And and the great thing is right now, because of the happily ever after hours. Yeah, I was like, am I going to mess it up? Happily ever after hours. You don't have to be in San Francisco to be experiencing what the Walt Disney Family Museum has to offer. So if you want more information, go to waltdisney.org. You can see I threw it on the ticker down below there because we're fancy like that. But, stop by, tell them that we sent you there and that we say hi, because I'm sure they'll know who we are. And actually, some of them do. I shouldn't be facetious. They're like, oh, them. They're always emailing us. But
it's true.
But it's definitely worth it. Thanks for taking your time with me this afternoon, Caitlyn, and make sure to subscribe to this channel and subscribe to DAPs Magic, because Caitlyn has more articles about the Walt Disney Family Museum coming up. She also just did a really fun one that's kind of connected to Walt Disney Family Museum on It's a Small World in the history and development of that through the years. It's definitely worth checking out on dapsmagic.com. But that is all the time we have for you guys today. We hope you have an absolutely fantastic weekend. We hope you're staying safe washing those hands and socially distancing. As you can see, we are from 300 miles away.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, all that. But we hope much sooner rather than later, we'll see you in the parks.